The AZIMIO is a coalition that is built on quicksand. They are instruments of state and instruments of criminal justice that were used to coerce people into that coalition, and that is why you saw it fall apart immediately after the election. Let it first be stated that Kenya Kwanza is the majority in the August House. As was proven when we were electing a speaker, you saw that we won in the first round when we elected the Right Honorable Speaker Moses Masika Wetangula. It's also important for people to understand history. We changed our constitution in 2010, and it was envisaged by the drafters of the new constitution that the role that had earlier been designated as leader of government business in the House was actually the role that ended up being the role of the leader of majority. So anyone claiming that a minority in parliament can actually be the one nominating a majority leader is actually off the mark, totally off the mark. Because you can imagine that the role of the leader of majority in the House is to actually champion government business in that House. The government of the day is a Kenya Kwanza government under the leadership of His Excellency William Samoei Arap Ruto, and that is why we boldly claim the position as is, because it is rightfully so that the leader of majority in the 13th Parliament is none other but the Honorable Member for Kikuyu Constituency, Kimani Waishongwa.
What if the Speaker rules otherwise?
Well, the Speaker has no business to decide who is the majority and who is not the majority. The Speaker will just proclaim himself on who the majority is. And the majority is about who has the numbers. There is an argument being pushed by AZIMIO that this was decided on the 9th of August. If you look at the history of this country, we were all there. We know how they came up to be an AZIMIO coalition. Under a very dictatorial regime where members were not able to express themselves, you know, as they are expected to constitutionally. There are people who ended up in formations they do not believe in. There are people who ended up in coalitions that they don't ascribe to, only and simply because they felt that the institutions of criminal justice would probably mete out punishment on them before they went to the elections. So the AZIMIO coalition is actually a house built on quicksand, because some people were coerced, some people were intimidated, some people were forced to be members of the coalition because they feared the consequences of going against the then regime, which was using instruments of state, instruments of the executive, instruments of criminal justice. So they are members who are members of that AZIMIO coalition, not because they will to be, but because they were coerced, they were forced, they were intimidated into the coalition. Soon after freedom came, because we declared that on the 9th of August, freedom was coming. Soon after freedom came, we saw them bolting out. They did not even blink an eye. They left that coalition. They were trooping out of it, running away from the harassment in that coalition, because they knew what was coming. They knew that if they went into the House in this formation that they went into the election with, they would suffer the same fate that the CORD people suffered, the same fate that NASA suffered, is the same fate that AZIMIO is going to face. In fact, some of the seats that have been given in the AZIMIO coalition, you will see them shifting very soon. In the 12th Parliament, we saw parties like ANC, parties like Wiper, being harassed by the big brother in the coalition. Eventually, even in House leadership, a seat like the seat of majority in Senate, which had been designated for the Honorable Moses Wetangula, was actually taken away from his party, Ford Kenya, and given back to an ODM member. And I remember vividly what he said. He said that the fallout will be like a divorce, that it will be messy, it will be untidy, it will be noisy, and it will have casualties. The casualties, we are seeing them now. So the AZIMIO is a coalition that is built on quicksand. They are instruments of state and instruments of criminal justice that were used to coerce people into that coalition, and that is why you saw it fall apart immediately after the election, and it gave Kenya Kwanza the majority that it enjoys, both in the upper house, which is the National Assembly, and even in the Senate. Yes. Well, as we have all heard in his maiden speech, the Speaker has actually mentioned that he's taking up the matter and diplomatically attending to the SR issue in relation to members' welfare. But to my mind, as Member of Parliament for Dagoretti South, I do believe that this Parliament has bigger fish to fry. For example, the economy of this country is waiting upon this Bunge to open the Pandora's box that is the Treasury of Kenya, where for 5 years in the 12th Parliament, we sought to find out what is the debt situation in this country. We sought to find out, have we blown the debt limit? We sought to find out what do the contracts that have been given for capital projects look like. And you remember we were taken round in circles for 5 years, that even the Parliament, which has been given the role of oversight of a government, was not able to establish how the debt situation looks like in Kenya, what is the economic health of our country, and what some of these contracts carry. The contract of the expressway, the contract of the SGR, and many other capital project contracts. Bunge was denied access to these contracts. So to my mind, the 13th Parliament has its in-tray full, and it will be sacrilegious of us members to go chasing red herrings while we have very important business in the House to attend to in the 13th Parliament. Thank you very much.